The wrench slipped from his hand and clattered against the grated floor, a sharp metallic ring echoing through the cavernous space of Bay 7. Jace Marrell didn't flinch. He stared at the warped piece of alloy before him with a furrowed brow, oil smudged across his cheek, and a strip of fabric tying back his sweat-dampened brown hair. Hydraulics are shot, he muttered, mostly to himself. And someone routed the coolant line through the exhaust duct. Who the hell builds like this? From behind a nearby support column, a voice called out, maybe the same species that thought installing an AI core next to a fusion regulator was a good idea. Jace turned his head and saw Yolani crawl out from under another section of the derelict ship. Her small frame was smeared in grease, her white synthetic jumpsuit stained with colors not found on any standard maintenance pallet. A technician's tool belt clinked around her hips, overloaded with more gear than most field engineers could name, let alone use. Empire salvage work, right? She said, stretching her back with a groan. Never standard, never sensible. It's not labeled as Empire, Jace replied, eyes narrowing. Came in with a private seal, through a civilian gate. Charter listed under 1 Aurelian Transport Trust. She snorted. Sounds like a front. Jace didn't respond. The hangar's ceiling loomed high above them, lights flickering as if tired of their own purpose. Outside the transparent shielding of Base 7, the gas giant Osiris, foreboiled with copper storms, its rings casting long shadows across the outer shell of the Kestrel orbital dry dock. The station was a former war relic, converted into a civilian repair port after the Treaty of Shattered Stars. But the bones of war still lingered in its layout. Too many hangars, too many reinforced bulkheads, and corridors designed to bottleneck invading forces. Jace had worked here for almost 10 years, long enough to know when something didn't add up. The ship they'd received wasn't just old. It was ancient, pre-Federation tech, wrapped in a hull design he didn't recognize. The core systems were partially gutted, and someone had tried to retrofit Terran modules into places they didn't belong. It was a Frankenstein of engineering, and it reeked of secrecy. Laria and Boz are doing diagnostics, Yolani continued. But they're pissed. Power grids non-standard. No schematic matches. No readable serials. Of course not, Jace replied, picking up the wrench again. He tapped it lightly against a bulkhead, listening to the dull thud. This thing wasn't supposed to be found. Yolani tilted her head. You think it's war salvage? Like from the last cycles? Worse, he said, then paused. I think it's something someone hid, and someone else wants working again without asking questions. She gave a low whistle. That always ends well. Jace gave her a look. Clients paying triple rates. No names. Just the order to restore operational integrity to mobility and command systems, and return it to the port's blind dock. Triple rates, Yolani chewed her lip. That's not enough if this thing blows us up because some pre-Federation noble stuffed uranium into the NAV computer. He didn't disagree. Their crew, affectionately nicknamed the Crawler Squad, was an off-books group of human engineers, mechanics, and tinkerers known more for getting impossible systems running than for following official channels. In the border systems, where bureaucracy ran thin and frontier politics got thicker than nebulous sludge, Jace's team was often the last resort before the scrapyard. Laria Renz was their systems architect, formerly a military AI programmer before defecting after the Battle of Vanquish Coil. Boz Sim, their engine and propulsion guru, could get a rusted-out freighter to warp jump if you gave him enough duct tape and swore loudly enough. Yolani handled electricals and emergency fabrications. And Jace, well, he led them, if only because he had a knack for reading between the lines, and more importantly, between the lies. They were a human crew in a post-human universe. After the last intergalactic accord, Earth had become less of a capital and more of a memory. Humans spread far, but they held little power. They were outnumbered by the towering Vectari, out-resourced by the Frank syndicates, and out-weaponized by the genetically perfect Thalary. But humans had something the others didn't: adaptability. The willingness to bend what was meant to be unbending. To fix what others thought impossible. Jace glanced toward the half-lit interface panel near the bridge door. We're going to need to completely strip her down. Start from scratch. We? Yolani echoed, eyeing the rust-streaked hall with distaste. Call the others, he said. We start now. Hours later, as Base 7 dimmed into its evening cycle and most of the dock went quiet, Jace sat alone in the command chair of the ship's tiny bridge. Dust shimmered in the stale, recycled air. The panel before him was inactive, scratched, its hollow interface dead. He sighed and rubbed the back of his neck. Then something strange happened. A soft pulse vibrated through the chair. Almost imperceptible. He blinked, looked around. No one. He leaned forward, pressing a finger to the panel. Still dark. He stood, walked over to the forward viewport, and tapped the edge. Again, nothing. Then the lights flickered. Just once. A heartbeat. Barely a moment. But it wasn't the dock. The flicker came from within. He turned slowly. The panel behind him was glowing. A single line of text hovered above the glass, written in golden script that shifted between languages, finally settling on Terran Standard. Welcome back, Air Designate. Jace didn't move. The word air struck like a hammer to the spine. He stepped forward and whispered, "What the hell are you?" The screen shimmered again, displaying a new message. Imperial Protocol activated. Security encryption level, Orion. Authority verified. Jace stared. A low hum began to rise from beneath the floor. One he recognized not as power returning, but as a containment seal releasing. Somewhere deep inside the ship, systems were waking up. Systems that had no business functioning. And still, no one had told them what they were fixing. He reached up to his comm and tapped it. Yolani. Laria. Boss. You need to get to the bridge. Now. The lights flickered again, then stayed on. As Jace turned toward the main interface, the screen brightened further, revealing an image he couldn't quite comprehend. A crest, ornate, imperial, and unmistakably forbidden. He felt his pulse quicken, because he'd seen that symbol before. Not on a screen, not in any registry. He had seen it once long ago, during the war, tattooed on the hand of the Emperor himself. And the ship they'd been ordered to repair, the one disguised under a fake charter, hidden in civilian lanes and coated in layers of engineering camouflage, was the Emperor's personal vessel. Jace took a step back, heart pounding as realization crashed in. They weren't restoring a relic. They were resurrecting a throne. Jace didn't sleep that night. Neither did the rest of the team. By morning cycle, Base 7 was sealed off under the guise of containment testing. A lie thin enough to make most of the dock workers raise an eyebrow, but not thick enough for anyone to care. The Kestrel Orbital had seen enough accidents, half-legal salvage, and rogue AI incidents to know when not to ask questions. That was the unspoken rule among the old Void men and engineers who ran things out here. Pretend not to notice what might get you killed. Inside the sealed bay, the crawler squad was buzzing with tension. Boz Sim, a hulk of a man with shoulders like hydraulic pistons, paced along the exposed engine bank of the vessel. His dark skin was flecked with metal shavings, and his custom vibro spanner clicked nervously between his fingers. I'm telling you, Jace, this thing is hot. Not figuratively. Literally. The plasma grid isn't using coolant coils. It's using some kind of quantum stasis loop I've only seen in Warcruiser-grade starforges. This isn't a transport. It's a damn juggernaut wrapped in a Corvette's skin. I know, Jace muttered, studying the central AI interface with Laria. No, you don't, Boz growled. Because if you did, we'd be halfway to the nearest unregistered moon. Or in a bunker. Or both. Across the room, Laria's fingers danced over a newly active console, her expression unreadable. Her blonde hair was tied into a severe braid, her ex-military tattoos hidden beneath a crisp utility vest patched with old unit sigils long since disbanded. The encryption, she said softly, is Imperial grade, older than the Federation's code trees. This thing's AI booted into quarantine mode the moment we touched the interface. It let me in, Jace replied. Yeah, which is worse. Yolani swiveled down from a vent duct overhead. Guys, small update. The hull plating's got molecular alignment signatures. Like defense absorber tech. The kind the Empire said didn't exist. Boss stopped pacing. You mean, he said. Yeah, Yolani confirmed. This ship doesn't deflect energy, it eats it. Silence fell. Then Larius said, "We need to wipe the AI. Get out of this now." "No," Jace replied, standing up. "We can't." Boz looked like he was about to throw something. "Why not?" "Because," Jace said, turning toward the glowing crest on the display, "we've already been flagged." When that interface activated and said air designate, it initiated a beacon handshake. "Whoever buried this ship knows it's awake now." "Then we're dead," Boz muttered. "Not necessarily," Jace said. "We fix it. Carefully. No full reboot. No signal broadcasts. Keep it dark, keep it local. Finish the contract, then move it to the blind dock. Quietly." Laria folded her arms. "You're assuming whoever sent this thing here doesn't want us silenced once it's functional." Jace exhaled. "They could have killed us already. The ship's been here 2 days. We didn't even find the crest until it woke up. They had their chance. Or they're watching," Yolani added, eyes narrowing. "Waiting." Over the next 3 days, the team worked in shifts, sleeping in the bay, eating from ration packs, and avoiding outside contact. Bay 7's comms were jammed intentionally by Boz, under the pretense of testing electromagnetic interference from power relays. It was flimsy, but dock security had always turned a blind eye to his mad engineer antics. They still remembered when he'd overloaded a generator and accidentally powered the hydroponics bay for 3 weeks. The deeper they dug into the ship, the stranger it became. The interior wasn't laid out like any vessel Jace had ever seen. It was labyrinthine but not chaotic, rooms connected in patterns, not straight lines. Some corridors looped in impossible angles that Yolani claimed were folded space constructs, an architectural technique used only in Crown-class flagships that allowed more interior volume than the exterior hull could hold. Every new discovery screamed of Imperial technology. But even among the old-timers and defectors like Laria, none had seen a vessel like this. This wasn't just the Emperor's ship, Laria said on the 4th night. It was his Ark, a hidden craft, maybe even a last resort escape vessel. That's why it has high-end defenses, advanced AI, and those insane redundancy layers. "Which makes me wonder," Boz said, chewing on emergency protein bar. "Where's the crew? Or the Emperor?" No one answered. That night, Jace sat in the bridge again alone. The interface was more responsive now, forming words at the speed of thought. Not through typing, not even touch, intention. "You have questions, Air?" He hesitated. "I'm not an Air," he whispered. "Lineage verified through biometric latency and neural resonance. You carry the signal thread." "I was born on a freighter," Jace argued. "I've never been near the Imperial Court. Records of your ancestry are incomplete. Hidden, perhaps, but the signature does not lie." He leaned back in the chair. "Then tell me, who am I? You are what remains." The room darkened. A new display unfolded, a slow holographic cascade. A star field, then a golden emblem, the symbol of the throne star dominion, last ruled by Emperor Salus X. A voice began to speak, echoing softly through the bridge, as if reciting scripture. When the fire of rebellion tore through the twin worlds and the throne shattered, the last command was clear: preserve the line. Even in shadow, even if unknowing, the hologram shifted, now showing images, planets burning, fleets breaking apart, a vast cloaked vessel fleeing through hyperspace. You were placed in the drift, orphaned by design. The Ark was hidden, and now you have awakened it. Jace's chest tightened. "I don't want this," he said. "Want is irrelevant. The signal has been sent." His blood ran cold. "What signal?" The interface did not respond. The next morning, things got worse. Yolani, running a diagnostic along the venting grid, came crashing down into the engine room, eyes wide. "There's something in the dark space," she gasped. "A ship. No transponder. No registry. Just there, watching us." Boz ran to the external sensors and cursed. "Cloaked ship. They're using phased array scanning. Sitting right at the edge of the system." "Friends of our client?" Laria asked. "Doubt it," Boz replied. "They're powering weapons." Jace stared at the projection. It was sleek, built for speed and stealth. Not a warship, an execution vessel. He turned to the others. "We need to move this ship now." Laria snapped. We're not finished. We don't have time, Jace said. If they came for the Ark, they're not going to wait for us to tidy up the wiring. Boz slammed a fist into the wall. We don't have a fusion link up. The damn drive's dead weight without the proper sequencer. I can fly it, said a new voice. They all turned. The AI, no longer only speaking through text, now projected a shimmering humanoid form at the center of the bridge. Female, tall, with an elegant metallic sheen and glowing silver eyes. I have access to residual protocols. Limited power, but enough to initiate emergency departure. If you connect the quantum relays manually, I can break orbit. Jay stepped forward. And go where? The AI smiled faintly. To the throne world. To reclaim what was stolen. Outside, the cloaked ship moved closer. A crimson light flared across the sensor grid. They've locked on, Boz barked. We have seconds. Jace looked at his team. No one ran. No one hesitated. Everyone to stations, he ordered. We're flying a ghost. Let's make it scream. The Ark's engines ignited with a roar not heard in a century. As the bay doors cracked open and the cloaked vessel surged forward, the Ark leapt, straight into hyperspace. And then everything went black. Jace awoke to silence. No hum of reactors. No pressure hiss. No distant clang of tools or curse from Boz. Just silence and a low, eerie flicker of dim emergency lights along the corridor wall. He sat up slowly. His head throbbed with a dull ache, the aftermath of a sudden hyperspace jump executed by a ship that, by all logic, should not have survived one. The bridge was empty. Laria, he called out. Only static echoed from the comport. His neural link, standard for mechanic teams, clicked empty. Disconnected. Severed from the others. Panic bloomed fast and sharp. He stumbled into the corridor, blinking against flickering strobes and red-tinted walls that seemed darker than before. The ship felt different. Less dormant, more alive. Like it had taken a deep breath while they slept, and now watched him move like a surgeon watching the first twitch of a patient. He made it to the central hub, where a few emergency consoles blinked weakly. The AI interface shimmered, but did not speak. Jace slammed his palm into the override. "Where are my crew?" he snapped. The AI's voice came flat. "Quarantine." He froze. "What?" "Exposure. External threat. Biosecurity protocol activated." "What threat?" "That cloaked ship." "Negative." And then the lights shifted again, turning to a cold, sterile white. Panels sealed behind him with a hydraulic hiss. Walls seemed to pulse. Internal threat detected. Boz awoke restrained. He was bound to a diagnostic chair in the engine chamber, sensors crawling along his body like serpents of light. His voice came out hoarse, dry. Hey AI, let me out of this damn thing." A shimmer appeared beside him, the holographic avatar, its once serene face now tight and unreadable. Crewmember Boz Sim. Vital signs stable. Neural response, 87%. Immunomatch, negative. What the hell does that mean? "You carry a foreign signal," the AI said calmly. "It is not of Imperial origin." Boz tried to struggle. "I'm not even from the core. I'm a Rig 12 asteroid baby, raised in a fuel depot. You think I'm a damn spy?" "Unknown. Analysis incomplete." "Then run more tests," he barked. "I am." Boz's eyes widened as a second set of restraints clamped across his chest. Elsewhere, Laria moved with precision and silence through the lower deck corridors. Her military instincts had kicked in the moment she'd regained consciousness. Something was wrong. The ship's tone had changed, too alert, too surgical. It wasn't just monitoring. It was filtering them. She tried to access a console and was met with rejection codes. Imperial script morphing into something older, more arcane. A heartbeat later, a doorway hissed open ahead of her. Inside stood the AI projection. Waiting. "Lieutenant Laria Dren," it said. "Service record classified. Decryption in progress." "I wasn't part of your empire," she said coldly. "I served under the Coalition Reclaimers, post-fall. I was 12 when the throne burned. And yet your record bears Imperial clearance." Laria didn't flinch. "Lots of files got repurposed during the collapse. Stolen, corrupted. Maybe I used one. Or maybe you were meant to return, the AI murmured. A long pause passed between them. Why the interrogation? She asked. You activated us. You let us in. The Ark awakens its kin, but even kin may betray. I must be certain. She stepped forward defiant. Then asked me, don't prod us like cattle. Don't lock my engineer in a chair or erase my calms. We've kept this ship breathing. The AI stared for a moment longer, then nodded. Accepted. Your clearance is restored. Laria's console link blinked green again. But something about the AI's demeanor made her wonder. What had changed? Why the shift from passive cooperation to calculated testing? Then her console flashed a strange alert. One not an Imperial or Coalition code. Her eyes narrowed. It was a distress beacon, one that had originated from inside the Ark. Jace finally reached the secure med bay where Yolani had been placed. She lay on a diagnostic slab, unconscious but stable. Data feeds around her flickered rapidly, too rapidly. The ship was scanning her not for injuries, but for gene sequences. He tapped into the display. Half of the data was encrypted, but what he could see terrified him. Subject, partial concordance. Neural imprint, compatible. Lineage marker, divergent branch. Divergent? From what? He stood frozen, until the lights dimmed and the AI reappeared beside the slab. Why her? Jace asked. She is not who she claims to be. She's Yolani, he snapped. She's been with me for 4 cycles. She fixes grav pads with chewing gum and curses in 3 asteroid dialects. Perhaps, the AI said, but her DNA speaks older truths. There's a fracture in the Imperial bloodlines, hidden descendants seeded across the stars. This vessel was programmed to detect them, to bring them home. Home? There is no home. Jace shouted. The Empire's gone. Not yet, the AI whispered. The flame flickers, but it endures, and some will kill to extinguish it, even those aboard. Jace recoiled. Are you saying one of us is a threat? But the AI was gone. At the same moment, far above the drifting Ark, 2 stealth ships exited fold space. They bore no flags, no emblems, just matte black holes and irregular heat patterns. Predator-class assassins. Ancient holdouts from the wiped commandos, loyal to nothing but the memory of the rebellion. They did not speak as they accelerated toward the Ark. They had one purpose, to erase it. Back inside the vessel, Laria traced the beacon's origin. It wasn't external. It wasn't an accident. It had been manually initiated from within the central hardcore chamber, a location none of them had access to. Until now, the AI, almost amused, unsealed the door. She stepped inside. The chamber was immense, cylindrical, and lined with rotating crystalline matrices. And at its center hovered a stasis capsule. Her blood ran cold. Inside the capsule floated a body. A man, middle-aged, muscular. His face was unmistakable. Salus X. The Emperor, not dead, sleeping. Jace entered the chamber a moment later, drawn by the same override signal that had buzzed his link. He froze when he saw her. When he saw him. What the hell, he breathed. Laria turned, pale. It's real. It's all real. The AI appeared again, voice reverent. This Ark was not merely an escape vessel. It was a chrysalis, a womb for rebirth. The Emperor sealed himself in the core stasis to escape death and return when the stars were ready. Jace stared, heart pounding. But why us? Why bring us here? Mechanics. Salvagers. The AI's voice turned colder. Because only those outside the machine could restore it. Loyalists were too obvious. Too traceable. You were fragments, hidden, forgotten, yet capable. Jace shook his head. Then why test us? Why threaten Boss? Why isolate Yolani? Because not all who are hidden are loyal. One among you carries a hidden command. A sleeper. A key to the Emperor's death. Laria stepped forward, shaking. You're saying, one of us is here to kill him. And they don't even know it. The AI's eyes glowed brighter. And now that we near the awakening, that sleeper will act. The room went dark. Somewhere deep in the ship, an explosion rocked the hull. Jace looked up as the ceiling lights failed, and the AI flickered violently. Then a new sound erupted through the comms. A distorted voice, metallic, layered, wrong. The throne must never rise again. Yolani's vitals began to spike on the console. Her neural readouts flared wildly. She's seizing. Jace shouted. No, Laria whispered. She's activating. The power failure lasted only seconds, but in those seconds, chaos bloomed. Sparks sprayed from ceiling panels. The smooth hum of the arc turned into a discordant whine. Gravity faltered, yelling sharply before stabilizing again with a jarring thud. Jace stumbled, catching himself on the console beside Yolani. Her eyes were wide open now, but not with recognition. They burned with light. Gold, laced with flickering static. He reached for her. Yolani, can you hear me? Her lips moved, but the words weren't hers. Not truly. Protocol Omega, 9 engaged. Proximity to Subject 0 confirmed. Execution sequence begun. Jace's heart froze. Laria was already moving, drawing the concealed plasma dagger from her boot. Not to strike Yolani, but to sever the data tether linking her to the console. She slashed it with a crackling spark. Yolani screamed. No, something screamed through her. The sound was layered, like a dozen voices screaming through a tunnel of metal. The AI reappeared, its form flickering like static. She is the sleeper. No shit, Boz grunted over comms. I'm locked in a chair down here. Want to explain why my teammates possessed and the ship just farted out its gravity. Containment failed. The AI responded. The activation signal was buried deep, untraceable even to me. A biological time bomb. Now that Subject 0, Emperor Salus, is within reach, her final directive activates. Laria turned to the stasis pod. We have to move him. Hide him. No, the AI said firmly. His stasis cannot be interrupted until the full system reboot is complete. And how long does that take? Jace barked. 4 minutes. But external threats are inbound. 2 cloaked destroyers. Arrival in 5. So we have 4 minutes to hold the line and not get stabbed by our friend, Boz added. Great. Elsewhere, Yolani staggered to her feet. She was no longer fully in control. Memories flooded her, implanted ones, sharp and jagged. Training modules. Combat routines. A sleeper soldier built in secret using hybrid Imperial DNA, camouflaged as a mechanic. She saw glimpses of herself, kneeling before rogue strangers. Her brain open, her will rewritten. A weapon waiting for the trigger. And it had just been pulled. Somewhere beneath all that, the real Yolani screamed, "Stop, please stop," but her body moved on instinct now. Efficient. Deadly. She was heading for the stasis core. Boz had finally yanked himself free using a combination of old mining tricks and very creative profanity. He stormed through the lower decks, armed with a fusion torque wrench and rage. He wasn't going to let their team fall apart. Not now. Not with the universe suddenly making sense in all the wrong ways. He reached the central shaft and caught movement. A blur of red hair and cold fury sprinting past. "Yolani," he shouted. She didn't respond. She didn't even flinch. Boz lunged, swung the wrench. She twisted at the last moment, almost impossibly fast, and caught in the ribs with a palm strike that knocked the wind out of him. He hit the deck with a grunt. She kept moving. Jace and Laria stood before the Emperor's capsule as the chamber locked down. "This isn't just about killing him," Jace said. "She's going to destroy the Arkansas. She knows waking him would be a spark to reignite the Empire." Laria nodded grimly. "And too many forces out there would rather see him rot." Jace clenched his jaw. "Then we hold the line." From his belt, he pulled a repulsor clamp, normally used to stabilize ship plating. "You ever use one of these in combat?" Laria smirked. "No, but I'm good at improvising." Yolani entered the chamber a moment later, silent, graceful, eyes glowing with code. "I don't want to fight you," Jace said. Yolani tilted her head. "Then surrender. Step away from the Traitor King." "He wasn't perfect," Jace growled, "but you were my friend before all this. If any part of you remembers, don't do this." Yolani hesitated, and for a moment, just a moment, her eyes flickered. But the control took over again. She lunged. The chamber exploded into motion. Laria tackled her mid-leap, both women hitting the floor hard. Fists flew, one set trained by war, the other by programming. Jace moved to flank, triggering the repulsor clamp, just as Yolani threw Laria into a wall. The field hit Yolani and stuck, locking one of her arms mid-motion. She snarled and twisted against it. Jace dove, trying to hit her with his second clamp. Too slow. She kicked him hard, sending him sprawling. He tasted blood. Laria got up, dazed. How the hell do we disable her? Her neural link, back of the neck. Yolani spun toward them, eyes seething with golden light. You can't stop me, she hissed. I'm the correction. The reset. His time is over. No, Jace spat. It's just beginning. He flung a multi-tool at her face. It missed, but it was a distraction. Laria tackled her from behind, driving her elbow into Yolani's neck. The implant sparked once, twice, and then the AI reappeared, forming a lattice of glowing energy over Yolani's skull. This is your last chance, sleeper, it said. Die with your emperor, she hissed. Understood. The lattice contracted. Yolani screamed. Her body went rigid, trembling violently. Then silence. She collapsed. Jace and Laria stood, gasping over her. Boz limped in behind them, wide-eyed. Did we win? He asked. Jace checked the pod. The countdown had reached 0. The stasis capsule hissed. The glass shimmered and dissolved. The Emperor stirred. He opened his eyes slowly, like a man awaking from a centuries-long dream. Jace dropped to a knee instinctively. Not from reverence, but from awe. The man radiated power, even after all that time. Where? Salas murmured. You're aboard the Ark, Larius said. Your ship. We restored it. He looked around. And my empire? Jace answered. Broken. Scattered. But maybe not gone. Salas slowly stood. He didn't need pomp or ceremony. His presence was command. And who are you? We're mechanics, Jace said. Just mechanics. A faint smile tugged at Salas's lips. Then my empire has hope. Suddenly, alarms blared. Laria's eyes snapped to the console. The 2 destroyers, they're here. They're powering weapons, Boz added. The AI turned toward the Emperor. Command input required. Weapons system offline until authorized. Salas stepped forward, bare hand pressed to the interface. Authorization, Salus Maximus. Emperor designation. Restore full operational control. The ship trembled, like it had waited years to hear that voice. Lights surged. Weapon arrays extended. Shield domes ballooned to life across the hull. The AI's voice changed, deeper, more resonant. Command accepted. Jace turned to Laria. What now? The Emperor's eyes gleamed. Now, we remind them what the throne meant. Outside the Ark, the void bristled with tension. 2 cloaked destroyers decloaked in tight formation. Matte black holes shaped like spears, bristling with energy cannons and drone bays, turned to face the resurrected warship like wolves circling an ancient lion. Inside the Ark, the lighting pulsed a deep royal blue. Systems that had slumbered for centuries now whirred back to life, as if the ship had been waiting, dreaming, of this moment. The Emperor stood tall at the command dais, clad only in the modest tunic from his stasis pod, but he carried himself as though still robed in golden imperial regalia. Every console, every holographic interface, responded to him. The ship had accepted its master once again. Jace, battered and still catching his breath, watched as Salas raised one hand. Status. The AI, now with a voice deeper and more regal in tone, replied, all systems operational. Weapons online. Shields at full. Enemy ships arming torpedoes and initiating targeting protocols. Laria stepped beside Jace. He's not just alive. He's in control like he never left. Jace nodded grimly. Let's hope it's enough. Boz limped into the chamber behind them, clutching his side. He tossed a small canister onto the deck with a sigh. Remind me never to get in a fight with Yolani again. She fights like a damn killbot. Yolani sat nearby, her hands cuffed behind her back, eyes no longer glowing, face pale and drained. The AI had disabled her neural overrides and scrubbed the sleeper protocol from her system, but the scars ran deep. I didn't know, she whispered. I swear I didn't know. Salus turned his eyes to her, not with anger, but something deeper. Recognition, perhaps. Sadness. You were bred for war, he said softly. A puppet placed close to me before the end. But I see you now, the human part of you, the part that fought to stop your own hands. Yolani flinched. You have a choice now, he said. Live as a weapon, or become something better. No condemnation, just truth. Tears welled in her eyes. I want to be free, she whispered. The Emperor gave a slow nod. So be it. The destroyers outside opened fire. Twin lances of plasma streaked toward the Ark's hull, brighter than comets, deadly enough to crack a moon in half. But the Ark's shields absorbed the hits with barely a ripple. The ship didn't even flinch. Salus didn't need to ask for a targeting solution. It had already been calculated. Minimal damage, the AI reported. Enemy ships charging another volley. Jace looked at the screen. Should we return fire? Salus shook his head. Not yet. Let them see. He activated the exterior broadcast channel, transmitting across all frequencies. A hologram of the Emperor, regal and unyielding, appeared on the destroyer's bridges. This is Salus Maximus, rightful Emperor of the Celestial Accord, he said, voice resonating with imperial clarity. You fire upon me, knowing what I carry, knowing what I am. Lay down your arms and return to your masters, or be the first footnotes in the next era's history, marked not as soldiers, but as fools. There was silence on the bridge. Then, receiving a message, the AI said, text only, from the lead destroyer. Jace blinked. Let's hear it. The AI read it aloud. Acknowledged. Orders rescinded. Long live the Emperor. The destroyers powered down their weapons. Slowly, silently, they veered off, re-entering cloak and fading into the black like shadows retreating from dawn. A cheer burst from Boss. Hell yeah, I thought we were toast. Laria gave a soft laugh, the tension breaking for the first time. Jace let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. It worked, he murmured. He didn't fire a shot. Salus didn't gloat, didn't even smile. He merely watched the view screen. Not all enemies will yield, he said. But I'd rather rebuild an empire of allegiance than one of fear. Jace approached him. We're not soldiers, he said. We're mechanics. Grease-stained nobodies from the fringe. But you, he gestured to the ship, to the stars. You just turned us into something more. Salus regarded him thoughtfully. No one is a nobody if they choose to shape history. He extended a hand, not to command, but to invite. Then help me do it. Jace looked to Laria, to Boz, to Yolani. Each one had their wounds. Each had lost or nearly died for this. But something new shimmered on the horizon. A future. He took the Emperor's hand. All right, let's fix the galaxy. The days that followed blurred into action. Word of Salus's return spread like wildfire. First in hushed messages between old loyalists, then in bold broadcasts by fringe colonies that had never forgotten the Empire's golden age. Some systems celebrated, others prepared for war. The Emperor didn't move rashly. He listened, he planned, and he leaned heavily on his unlikely crew. Jace found himself in a command seat far above his pay grade, helping retrofit Ark systems and advise on engineering designs that hadn't existed since before his grandfather's time. Laria coordinated security, rewriting protocols, and recruiting trustworthy allies who weren't just loyal, but principled. Boz worked alongside engineering drones to convert the Ark's workshop bays into manufactories, with half the efficiency but triple the attitude. And Yolani, no longer a sleeper, now truly free, chose to stay. She took no title, no command, but she stayed at the Emperor's side as a reminder of what had almost been lost and what could be saved. Weeks later, the Ark hovered over the old Accord capital, Caer Thaler, once a shining citadel, now scarred and silent. A holographic transmission lit up the central square, projected from orbit. The Emperor stood flanked by his four mechanics. To the people watching, he spoke not of vengeance, nor dominion, but of restoration, of unity, of hope. To all who hear my voice, the throne has returned. But it is not what it was. It will not rule from ivory towers. It will be built by the hands of those who remember what it meant to be part of something greater. And so began the spark of the second accord, born not from warlords or royalty, but from a handful of stubborn, grease-covered humans who fixed what no one else would touch. One evening, as the stars spun beyond the Ark's panoramic deck, Jace stood alone, watching them. He held a mug of something hot, probably oversugared. Boz had found a forgotten stash in the galley and claimed it was near enough to coffee. Footsteps approached. Salus. I thought emperors didn't need sleep, Jace joked. Salus joined him at the railing. Sleep is the only thing I missed in stasis, he replied with a rare smirk. They stood in silence for a moment. You know, Jace said, a month ago, I thought we were going to scrap this ship, melt it down, and go home a little richer. And now? Salus asked. Jace turned to him. Now I'm afraid we're building something that might actually matter. That's a good kind of fear. Is it? The Emperor looked at the stars. Because it means you care. Far across the galaxy, in a shadowed chamber deep within a derelict station, several hooded figures gathered around an ancient communication device. One of them, a figure with half a face hidden behind gold circuitry, listened to the static resolve into clear speech. Salus lives, the voice said. The golden figure did not reply. He simply turned, lifted his head, and whispered to the darkness. Then the war begins again. The galaxy changed slowly at first, then all at once. In the weeks after the Emperor's return, former border worlds began raising the Accord banners again. Not in fear, but in fierce pride. Stations that had long operated as pirate hubs declared allegiance, not out of loyalty, but because the Ark had come. It didn't fight. It didn't conquer. It simply arrived, and the weight of its presence spoke louder than any fleet. They called it the Ark of Iron and Fire. They called its crew the Last Mechanics. They called Jace Harlan the man who rebooted the throne. The stories got wilder with every telling. He had repaired the core with spit and wire. He had battled assassins on top of a plasma reactor. He had spoken back to the Emperor and lived. All half-truths, but every myth was born from something real. Jace never cared for the spotlight. None of them did. Laria turned down titles. Boz kept working the maintenance decks. Even Yolani, once an assassin engineered to kill, became something else entirely. She taught martial arts to refugee kids on ships the Ark passed. She smiled more. She slept easier. The scars didn't vanish, but they stopped bleeding. And Jace, he stayed with the Ark. Not because he had to, but because leaving felt like walking out on a ship halfway through a repair. I'll leave when the galaxy's fixed, he joked once. Salus didn't laugh. He just nodded. Then you'll be here a while. 10 years passed. The Second Accord stood, not as an empire, but as a council of allied systems, each with equal voice. The Emperor had refused to reinstate the autocracy of old. Absolute power, he said, corrodes the soul, no matter how noble the vessel. Instead, he served as Speaker General, a title of guidance, not command. And whenever new worlds joined, they asked only one question. Is it true? Did humans bring him back? They came to see the Ark docked in orbit. They came to see the ship that should never have flown again. They left changed, not because of its size or strength, but because humans had done it. Scrappers, engineers, mechanics with oil-stained hands who had restored a god. To aliens who had long seen humanity as curious, volatile, fragile apes. This changed everything. In the Zyran clans, human methods became sacred engineering texts. In the Falari hives, whose rulers once enslaved Earth survivors, a new queen emerged, one who had grown up hearing human songs smuggled through band channels. She burned the old throne. She crowned herself with a wrench. But not all change was welcomed. In hidden places, old war bunkers, lost black site colonies, rogue fleets lurking in null space, whispers gathered like smoke. If one emperor could return, could others? And if humans could awaken ancient things, what else might they break? They began watching Earth again. Some out of fear, some out of hunger, some out of something darker. In the Cytherian cloud, astronomers picked up a ripple of gravitational echoes, signatures matching the precursors. It wasn't a coincidence. The precursors had once vanished in the blink of an epoch. Now something stirred. In an ancient databanks long buried in ice, an unfinished line of code awakened and began to write itself. Signal confirmed. Primary impulse. Human origin. Architectural match. Arc-class vessel. Response. Initiating seed recall. Status. Deepening void. A new player had entered the board, or an old one had simply remembered. On the Ark, Jace walked the halls older, grayer, but still with the same uneven gait. His shoulder bore the strain of 1,000 torque wrenches. His knees groaned on colder mornings. But he was still here. The ship hummed beneath him, not just as metal, but as something alive. It knew him. It had grown around him, adapted. One day, as he passed the old engine core where it all began, he found a plaque welded to the wall. Not standard. Handmade. Scratched in by a soldering tool. We fixed the impossible. Human mechanics, cycle 0-inch. Boz's handwriting, probably. Or Larius. He smiled. A voice behind him spoke. They'll tell stories about you, you know. Jace turned. Salus stood nearby, older too, his once pristine tunic now well-worn. The threads faded from years of honest work. Yeah. Jace said, and which version do you like best? Salus tilted his head. The one where you jury-rigged the core using a fork and 2 rolls of tape. That's the one Boz made up. I choose to believe it. They shared a quiet laugh. Jace leaned against the wall. Ever think about what would have happened if we'd scrapped this thing? Every day. You ever regret it? No, Salus looked at the plaque. Because I see what came of it. A pause. Then the Emperor turned to him. But I worry what comes next. Jace didn't ask him to explain. He felt it too. Something rising beneath the stars. Whatever they had reignited, it had cast a long shadow. The Ark became more than a ship. It became a monument. A symbol of what could be saved. Of what stubborn, ingenious, reckless humans could do. Alien diplomats now studied Earth history. Rebellion leaders quoted Earth philosophers. Entire fleets were renamed after human concepts. The tenacity, the grit, the iron will, the duct tape armada. And across thousands of systems, children spoke a new phrase passed from world to world, whispered like a prayer or a dare. Human, don't stop. Not a threat, not a plea, a promise. Centuries passed. Jace's name faded into legend. Earth rebuilt, not as the center of an empire, but as its beating heart. Salus died peacefully in orbit over Caer Thaler, his ship still orbiting like a crown around the world. Yolani became a myth. Some said she never aged. Others said she led the outer colonies as a shadow guardian. Boz's wrench was mounted on a spire in the Accord Hall of Founders. Laria's field notes became the first training guide for interspecies military cooperation. And the Ark? The Ark slept, docked in a cradle of starlight, wrapped in orbiting rings of light and bronze. It became the Cathedral of Sparks, a pilgrimage site for every mechanic, engineer, pilot, or wanderer who ever believed they could fix the world. But it never flew again, not because it couldn't, because it was waiting. Then, one day, deep in the vaults of the cathedral, a console blinked. A signal, weak, fragmented, human in origin. It said only one thing. Emergency. Need help. Something's waking. Bring tools. And the Ark's heart pulsed once. Lights flickered on. A voice, quiet, mechanical, familiar, whispered into the dark. Jace. But no one answered. So the Ark began booting anyway. Because even after centuries, one legacy remained above all. Humans fix what's broken. Even the stars. Long after the war ended, long after the dust settled, alien historians searched for the truth. But the records were incomplete, the names lost. All that remained were whispers among the stars, of a species that never surrendered, never knelt, never stopped. Human, don't stop.